It's time for the 3rd annual Drunken Hillbilly Knife Awards.
Waking up to the smell of Muddy Creek water and whiskey-stained underwear can mean a couple of things around here. One of them is that we spent the night working on the list for the Nothing But Knives Hillbilly Knife Awards of 2023. Another reason might be that we finally got the raccoon family out of the hole where we keep the bug-out liquor, but we can still taste food and all the bite marks look like they're either squirrel or human, which is to say that we'll get to the list as soon as the coffee gets us seeing straight again. Ceremonies begin the evening before the way they usually do, with lively discussion combined with drinks and ponderous ruminations on the benefits of one or the other of us shutting their damn mouth, escalating rapidly to threats of violence, followed by actual mild violence, with further escalation and a final agreement that someone needs to be right about something before we forget what we were arguing about in the first place. So here we go. Morning after, more or less, a shortened list that no one asked for of our favorite knives of 2023. The Vosteed RSKAOS is a titanium brick with a 3-inch blade inside. It's got a milled clip, it's got a compound grind that we're still trying to figure out how to make full use of. But most important is that it has this thumb hole and this flipper tab and this button to actuate whatever they're calling the lock in this. Top liner or reverse liner, modified button lock, we don't really know. It works though, and in a way that feels safer to us than the average button lock. We didn't test that claim, it was more a hypothesis birthed out of the loudness of the clicking noise the lock makes when you fully deploy the blade. Also more importantly, you can do this with it. The BPS Bushmate is a pretty typical design in Bushcraft, but it's a well done typical design. The handle is comfy and index as well, there's some of that slopey business at the top of the handle for pinch gripping, and the sheath sits well enough on the belt that we almost look like we know what we're doing in the woods. It was designed by the guys at Dutch Bushcraft Survival, which complicates this video a little because including this knife means we draw attention to other knife reviewers who are both more competent and more entertaining than us. Anyway, this knife is really good, and we just hope there's enough time left in your day to watch more than one set of people poke logs with sharp things. The Condor Mountaineer Trail Wingman knife has about a 3-inch blade, so depending on what font you use, you could type the name out, hold the knife up to your screen, and the name would be longer than the blade. Not really, probably. You'd have to have some wild kerning settings to make that happen, but maybe you tried anyway, and that was fun for all of us. If we can muster the energy to put jokes aside, this is the kind of small fixed blade design that lends itself to EDC use. Part of that is because the sheath rides well on the belt and doesn't even look that out of place if you carry this around town a little, depending on the town, but the handle also just works. It's a little bit curvy and has a couple different textures on it thanks to the cords in the middle, and gripping comes easy no matter what you're doing, even if what you're doing is kind of dumb and pointless. It's not about size, it's about style, but size helps. It also helps that we've been slapping off-grid knives around the woods long enough to know that when they make a blade out of D2 steel, it can stand to get smacked, dropped, and chopped into things that normally shouldn't be smacked, dropped, and chopped by a knife, without risking the integrity of the edge too much. Practical applications aside, it's hard for us to walk away from any kind of Bowie-style blade, much less one that's of a size to free the 6-year-old part of our brains that otherwise stays hidden behind the pillar of liquor bottles we use as a mental support for the facade of adulthood we barely manage to maintain on a daily basis. Pad that with the fact that the Caiman XL is really well balanced. You don't feel the blade in a swing so much as the tilt of the handle, so there's a certain feeling of finesse that adds to the illusion of skill we use to randomly chop vines and dead branches around the woods. It sure was a fun, dirty trick Ken Onion played on a bunch of drunk idiots to make a cool knife that can only be opened with fine-tuned wrist motion. The award for this is more a representation of how we felt after we held the Redemption on the correct side and then flicked the blade out without dropping it for the first time. As for the practicality of the knife itself, there are definitely things that could have been done that would have made it feel more comfortable in the hand and made the blade a little bit cleaner on the cut, but those changes would have butted into the clean lines of the dagger blade and the coffin handle. The edge is good enough, and the grip is about as neutral as you can get with a folder, but we were never under the illusion that we bought the Redemption because we thought it would be a better box cutter than whatever $40 hard-use knife is rusting by the wet pile of wood in a field that we call a desk. It's because we wanted a good gentleman's folder for the unlikely scenario where someone invites us over for a game of poker. So I guess there's one more. Ben came stumbling back into camp somewhere just before the crack of dawn, saying shiny people gave him another knife for our list. He then handed us a knife that we've owned since July. When I tried to tell him that not only did we already own that knife, we met the guy who made it and he wasn't shiny at all, Ben insisted that no, aliens made it and they wanted it on our list or they would, and this is a direct quote, slap us off their porch like a wet noodle. The blade is also made out of Nitro V, solid knife. Anyway, that's the short list. We picked a few other knives from last year. You can check out the full article for that in the link below. And after you read that, you can come back here to the comments section and jump on the inevitable train of helpful feedback about our choice of knives, beer, and general demeanor. So make yourselves at home, we'll just be over here reading through our hangovers.